Peter King here in person. Good to see you, Peter.
Rich, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Now there's a reason to come to Los Angeles for football.
2 teams, man.
I love that.
2 teams.
I really love that.
And we were talking about that folks across the country best get ready for the power of the NFL to be west in the Western time zone. Would you agree with that?
No question about it. I was at the 49ers yesterday. I would be a little worried about their skill position depth and worried that their defensive line, which they've spent so much draft capital on, is maybe not going to be the premier unit that everybody has thought that it would. Although DeForest Buckner is very, very good. I'd be a little concerned, especially in their backfield. Their top 2 backs now, McKinnon and Breeder, are both hurt. But look, Jimmy Garoppolo's a rising tide that lifts all boats.
It's
incredible.
Help me out with
It's
what's
incredible.
hype and what isn't, and what's to be believed, and how good he is, and that he's just, the football equivalent of hearing the crack of the bat in the.
Okay, Rich,
in
you've been around Kyle Shanahan. People sometimes when they ask me about certain guys, somebody said to me out in San Francisco yesterday, so hey, what do you think of the job Shanahan is doing? And I said, I think he's doing a great job. And they said, what's he like? And I said, he's skeptical. Because that's what he is. He does not buy into things right away. And so you remember when they made this trade last year, Rich?
I do.
Okay, when they made this trade, I was convinced that Kyle Shanahan wanted to go all in on Kirk Cousins in free agency in 2018. But when they traded for him, I said there had to have been a little bit of a buy-in from him. But I was told at that time that all this means is that they've spent a second-round draft choice and are going to see this guy for the next 2 months, and then they'll make their decision. Well, after they played, I think it was Tennessee, he walked into John Lynch's office last year and said, Shanahan walked into John Lynch's office, general manager, and he said, hey, let's get this guy signed. Let's get this guy done. And that, to me, said everything, because that, if you know Kyle Shanahan, you know that you have to do a lot of convincing to make him love somebody. And it didn't take him long. It only took him a few games to understand that this guy, not only is he smart in football, but he's also the kind of field general that Shanahan believes he needs.
So, Peter King, what is more likely to happen? Jimmy Garoppolo brings Lombardi to the 49ers, or we find out the real reason why Belichick got only a second-round pick.
Much more
Jimmy
likely
Garoppolo.
that he wins a Super Bowl. Because there's only about 3 people who know the answer to this question. There's Lynch, there's Belichick.
Well, Lynch might not even know. He might not even know why
I think Lynch
round.
knows. I think Lynch knows because he told me last year at the time, he says, Peter, I can't go there. So I think he knows.
Why only a second-round choice?
Correct.
Was
yeah,
the price
and in
for
other words,
Garoppolo.
not only why only a second-round choice, but think about it. Belichick at the time knew that if he put Garoppolo on the open market, he probably could have gotten a 1+ something from the Cleveland Browns. And why did he not do that? I have my pet theory. A lot of people like to say, hey, Belichick hates the Browns because they fired him once. I really don't think that's it. I think that Belichick truly likes Jimmy Garoppolo and wanted to do him a solid, first of all. And I think the second reason is if Garoppolo did go to Cleveland, even if the Patriots got a much better draft pool or draft compensation for him, he's very dubious about whether Garoppolo would have signed long-term with Cleveland. And so what happens if Garoppolo is ever a free agent out of Cleveland? Well, look at it right now. As of this year anyway, Bills needed a quarterback, Jets needed a quarterback, and next year Miami might need a quarterback. So why would you risk putting him in your own division? But that's just a little pet theory that I have.
Well, I mean, it's probably 4 people. If you say Lynch knows, it would be Kraft, Belichick, Brady, and then Lynch. And then the interesting thing, though, is because this is why I always say in between confetti coming down in the Super Bowl and training camp windows opening up, you have to put in perspective any NFL story. How will it manifest itself when the season starts playing? Because here we are, Brady's 41 and just got I guess a more incentive-laden contract thrown his way.
Yeah.
Belichick's not going anywhere. Kraft is sitting in the front office. There's Gronk back there. They're all ready to go again. And in a division that you've pointed out in mind-blowing fashion over the last 15 years, as you pointed out in your Football Morning in America column a couple weeks ago, the Patriots are 80 games better than the next team.
It's utterly
over the last
preposterous.
15 years.
The stat I love
Literally
about that
plus
one.
80.
The stat I love about that one is for the Jets to get even with the Patriots, they'd have to go 80-0 in the next 5 years, and the Patriots would have to go 0-80.
I wish it wasn't.
Hey, but don't you want to know my Michigan trivia?
Yes, I do, but I do want to let's put
all
a
right.
pin in that. I will definitely want to get to that.
Okay.
But just to continue this conversation with Peter King here. So yes, but the only team that I think that has equal footing with New England, and I know that this is potentially heresy to say this with the Pittsburgh Steelers, is Jacksonville, because they're young and they're hungry and they're really, really good. What the hell just happened?
I don't. That's a great question. I read about it this morning. I heard about it last night. I didn't write anything about it. I was just up to my rear end in alligators last night. But what happened to me after I read about it, it looks like it was sort of a brawl that got out of control at training camp.
And
the coach couldn't stop him.
Well, there's also the video that we're seeing right now on the screen that was taken by a Jacksonville.com reporter who Jalen then tweeted at. Basically saying, calling the reporter out for actually posting it. And all of a sudden, then he's suspended. Look, it's a week in preseason football, which is kind of like a paid vacation in a way. Like, enjoy not being here when it's 100 degrees out and playing in a meaningless game that can only be meaningful if you get hurt. So, and they called him for conduct unbecoming, not conduct detrimental, which means they're not going to take away any bonus money.
Right.
So this might be all much ado about nothing. Would you at least agree with my assessment then?
I'm just going to make this point. I'd be more worried about Fowler. Okay. Here's a guy who has not in any way played up to his draft status, his first round draft status. And when I read he was suspended, I said, is this guy ever just going to report to work, come and play games and be great? Or are we always going to be hearing about these little things with this guy? And again, I don't really know Fowler at all, but I would be more concerned about him. Jalen Ramsey, it strikes me from my reading of it, and probably even that, it looked as though he just got really ticked off and couldn't control himself. But those are not good things, especially if you're Doug Marrone. You have a reputation of running a tight ship. If you're Tom Coughlin, you run a tight ship. This happening under their watch is pretty strange to me.
Peter King here on the show. We'll take a 60-second break, come back, hit the poll question. I want that Michigan trivia, and I want to know what you've visited 14 camps, what people come up to you from coaching staffs and front offices asking, what are people talking about entering the season, and which team is got the most buzz behind it. Peter King, at Peter_King on Twitter. Back in 60 seconds with him with Ice Cube right behind. Peter King right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Ask him the poll question based off of that soundbite entering our second segment with Peter.
Okay,
Chris?
Peter, what is the biggest NFL preseason week one overreaction?
That Baker Mayfield completed 55% of his passes in his first NFL outing. And
I didn't
even get to the options.
And was immediately fitted for the gold jacket.
Okay, hold on.
In the locker room after the game.
Okay, let me give you the options. The biggest week one overreactions. Baker Mayfield should start for the Browns. Saquon Barkley will be an all-pro this year. Vikings are the Super Bowl favorite. Beast mode is back, and the helmet rule will ruin the season.
Well, I'm going to give you Mayfield, but the second one on that list will be the helmet rule will ruin the season, and the helmet rule is going to be impactful. I was at a game Saturday night in Phoenix or in Glendale.
I know what you're talking about.
That was horrendous. First of all, I mean, some of the calls are horrendous, but I'm just saying there are 32 flags in that game, Rich. 32 flags, including 5 in the last minute 50.
Oh, man.
You got 9 people in the stands, and John Perry and his crew are just... It's a flag fest.
Why? Why are they doing that?
Well, because you know, Rich, that every year in the preseason, they tell officials, err on the side of throwing the flag. We want to set the example. We want guys to know on these rules clarifications what we're going to call this year and how aggressive we're going to be. And I do think that helmet rule, look, I had on my trip, I had one coach say to me that he said he's had players come to him in training camp this year and just say, I just want to know, do you want me to change the way I play? They said, no, do not want to change the way. Okay, I just want to know that because at some point, I'm probably going to get kicked out of a game because there's no way you can play football without banging your helmet on somebody else.
Well, that Shamarko Thomas hit on David Moore,
right?
Where Shamarko Thomas of the Colts got ejected for hitting David Moore of the Seahawks. That is the exact play they want out of football.
Yes,
that's fine. But the A.J. Thomas play that you're referring to A.J. Howard play that you're referring to on hit Sean Culkin in that Cardinals-Chargers game. That's absurd. That's a football play.
Yeah.
But
those are the kind of plays, in my opinion, Rich, those are the kind of plays that when they watch tape, they're going to say, shouldn't have thrown this flag.
And thus, that's why you call it an overreaction, saying it's going to ruin the game.
Exactly. Because I believe what's going to happen is that twice a week, you're going to say, oh, my God, that was a horrible, horrible call. It's not going to be 16 times a week.
Okay.
Twice a week.
Well,
when the season starts.
Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show. The reason why we did not include Josh Rosen in there is because coming out of the draft, everyone was assuming he was going to be the most game ready for play, NFL ready quarterback. How did he look to you in that?
He didn't play particularly well, but the one thing that I really liked when I watched him is very confident. And I don't mean in a cocky way. I mean, he got under center and he got in the shotgun and he basically had no, I don't want to say no fear, but I mean, it looked like he'd been doing this for a long time. I talked to him after the game and he is not even remotely cowed or intimidated. And, the book on Josh Rosen obviously is that, he's a little bit full of himself. I talked to two guys who I've known for quite a while in that locker room, and they like Josh Rosen. It's early, but we'll see.
And Baker Mayfield fitted for the gold jacket?
I thought he made two
really
or three
good.
great passes. But here's the thing. Hugh Jackson told me something really good in Cleveland camp. He goes, look, Baker Mayfield's going to thank me one day for starting his career on the bench. And I think everybody would say, why would you say that? Because if you look at the way this sport is played and look at the complexity of this game, particularly from a guy who played in that offensive system at Oklahoma and needs a lot of work in the mental part of his game. Look what happened to Carson Palmer in 2003. It's only 15 years ago. And Carson Palmer had a redshirt year and went on to have an above average to very good NFL career at quarterback. And he credits, in part, being able to really learn everything before he had to play. If I was Baker Mayfield, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to play. Of course you want to play. But if I'm Baker Mayfield, there's definitely a silver lining in sitting.
Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show. The one team nobody's talking about that should be talked about is who?
The Baltimore Ravens.
Why is that?
Joe Flacco is playing excellent football in training camp. What does that mean? I don't know what it means, but he's supremely motivated. I don't want to say to stick it up their rear ends because that's not exactly right. He's supremely motivated to say, you draft a quarterback number one, I'm going to make him sit for the next 5 years.
Well, the last time that happened, they won the Super Bowl behind him.
That's correct.
When they pissed him off and
now,
made him prove something.
You watch this guy, and I was talking to Larry Fitzgerald about this because he was in Arizona. You watch John Brown. If John Brown stays healthy, I'm telling you right now, John Brown, the wide receiver, former Cardinal, stays healthy. And I'm saying on September 2nd, 4th, 5th, whenever you have your fantasy draft, pick him in the 11th round and thank me later.
Okay.
All right.
Well, where do you take Lamar Jackson then? Because they can't keep him off the field, Peter.
Lamar Jackson is football's version of Ohtani. He is. He's going to make some incredible plays, but are you ever going to be able to stick him in your lineup? I guess that's what I'm saying. Everybody was so excited. I'm a big rotisserie baseball player. And everybody was so excited before the year about Ohtani, but I said, is he going to get enough at bats? And is he going to pitch enough to be a big factor in fantasy rotisserie baseball? No and no.
But the Ravens can't keep this kid off the field. They can't. They can't. He's too dynamic, Peter. He's too good.
One person can play quarterback at once. He's not going to start the year as the quarterback. Joe Flacco is going to get the opportunity to keep him from because here's what's going to happen. They will do what Marty Mornhinweg did in Philadelphia 8 or 9 years ago when he was trying to just sort of get Michael Vick on the field at the time when they had Donovan McNabb. Remember? McNabb was the quarterback. He's the exact same situation that Flacco's in right now. McNabb started, but Vick would come in as a change of pace guy and maybe 10, 12 snaps a game. I forget how many he played. That's the way I think at first, anyway, they'll use Jackson.
A couple more minutes left with Peter King here in studio. What are people coming up to you and asking you, like coaches, because this is such a chatty league, and what are folks in the league picking your brain about mostly?
I had a coach yesterday called me on the phone and asked me, what can we do to stop this anthem thing? It's all anybody's talking about. My players are talking about it. That's all I read about. We're playing football games, and everybody's talking about who's kneeling, who's sitting. We got to stop this. And I said, I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know. Because where this went off the rails, in my opinion, is last year when the NFL handed the Players Coalition, $90 million over 7 years, basically as a gesture of goodwill and say, here, go work on your social causes. And expected that the anthem issue would go away. It hasn't gone away. It still isn't going away. And I think even if Goodell and D. Smith do make some sort of deal, that it's not going to stop the more the more avid kneelers, sitters, locker room guys from doing what they want to do.
Well, you and I talked about this on your podcast. We taped something before you came on here, and your podcast can be gotten on NBC Sports.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Not on NBC Sports. It's just independent.
Okay.
The Peter King podcast.
The Apple podcast and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Where, to me, the players and the management, union and the front office of the NFL getting together and coming together and doing something together would be monster big.
Yeah.
Just monster big. Whatever it is, if Trump complains about it, so be it. If fans still complain about it, so be it. If some players complain about it, so be it. It's got to be a group effort.
Correct.
It's got to be a group effort. So
just like it was in the NBA.
With a lockout potentially coming in 3 years from now, because the NBA has a more stringent rule right now, and you don't see anything in the NBA or hear anything in the NBA on this particular subject except to say, our house is fine. And we're still talking about social issues because there's a trust level between players and management that is lacking in the NFL.
Yeah.
That needs to be hammered out before
something's got to be done. As I said in
my
my column today, basically, where is Roger? Roger Goodell is the highest paid commissioner in the history of American sports, and he can't solve this problem.
Well, obviously,
that's what a commissioner needs to do in tough times. He needs to solve problems. I think this has to be owned by a lot of people, but mostly, in my opinion, this is on the doorstep of Roger Goodell.
Now, obviously, some players might be listening to this also saying the way to fix it is to have people stop getting shot, too.
I agree. That's why this is a very, very difficult issue, extremely difficult.
So before you go, sir, what's your Michigan trivia that I need to know about, please?
My Michigan trivia, and I just remembered in the middle of this segment that, oh my God, I wrote this in my column recently, so you may know, that Jim Harbaugh lives 4 houses down from Bo Schembechler's house in Ann Arbor. Mm-hmm. His children go to the same elementary school as he went to. So when people say, oh, Harbaugh, he's going to Indianapolis, he's going to wherever, I've started to think, not so fast, cowboy.
Peter, his parents live across the driveway. They live next door to each other.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh's children can go into his backyard, and Grandma and Grandpa watch them from their kitchen. Why would he leave anything like that?
I don't know.
So when I read all
Plus,
about
he's making $1 jillion, isn't he? I mean, whatever he's making, it's ridiculous.
And he's not having chicken, right? Did you read that?
No.
You didn't read this?
No. Why is he not
Nervous
having chicken?
bird.
Wilton Spate, who now is the quarterback out here for Chip Kelly, it looks like. Wilton Speight, former Michigan quarterback, now out here at UCLA, said Harbaugh once told him no chicken because it's a nervous bird. Don't eat a nervous bird.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
How can you not eat chicken? Hey, it worked for Wade Boggs. Come on.
Yeah, he also
You got
had
3,000 hits for Wade Boggs.
and like 80 light beers to go along with that fried chicken.
Oh, I guess I'll ask you the question Don Bowie, our coordinating producer,
Yeah.
gets in my ear, wants me to ask every single guest.
Great question.
Which Harbaugh needs to win more this year, Jim or John?
John.
Everyone says John.
John.
But Shoddy loves him, though. Really?
He loves them, but I think if they go 6-10, he's going to say, now, wait a second. Last 5 years? It'd be the last 6 years. They would be either right at 500 or below with one playoff
He'd
appearance.
be on the street for 2 minutes, wouldn't he?
I agree. I really, really have high regard for John Harbaugh. But I'm just saying, in the immortal words of Laura King, I'm just saying.
Yes.
My daughter used to always say that. I'm just saying.
I know. It's a great caveat to say whatever the hell you want to say after
He
it.
needs to win. He needs to win.
Great to see you, Peter.
Thanks
you,
for
Rich.
Great
This a
being here.
stop
Thanks for inviting me.
Anytime. Check out Peter on Twitter at Peter_King. His podcast available on Apple Podcasts, Football Morning in America on NBCSports.com, and Football Night in America coming up on Sundays. Great to see you, Peter.
Thank you, Rich.
You bet. We're back again. Ice Cube will be here in studio hour number 2, and then Alex Cora of Peter King's Boston Red Sox, 50 games above 500.
That's
The
ridiculous.
skipper will be joining us hour 3.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.